evening, everyone. Welcome to the FantasyPoints.com live stream. Starting a partnership with UnderdogFantasy.com. And my name's Joe Dolan. His name is Liam Murphy in a very interesting setup, Liam, back there. But hey, it looks comfortable, looks cozy. I can't knock that. But this is what we're going to do. We have a partnership now with Underdog Fantasy. By the way, FantasyPTS. Get that promo code for up to $100 in bonus cash on your first deposit for new players on Underdog Fantasy. I just figured, look, if we're going to be starting a partnership with Underdog Fantasy, why don't we just talk to the best person about Underdog Fantasy? And why is Liam Murphy the best about Underdog Fantasy? Because he won Best Ball Mania 2. He cleared $1 million and got a ring. Flash that thing, man. Flash that. Just please, just like, yeah, like
we got the ring here.
This is real. This is like real diamonds, right?
So, oh yeah, $200,000 ring. It's worth it to the no.
Oh no, dude, fantastic. I mean, look, he won Best Ball Mania 2, okay? The biggest best ball tournament that existed until I think this year. So certainly a guy who is going to have some great opinions. You can follow him on Twitter at ChessLiam, and you can follow him on I guess on Underdog. It is Go Bills 20 or Go Bills 2020.
Go Bills 2020, yeah. And I regretted making that username almost instantly, because I was like, I guess people are going to take Bills players just out of spite if they see this. Like, I should have named it like Cam Newton's my hero or something.
Yeah, well, so we'll get into the Bills players because certainly one of them factored very heavily into your championship lineup. But hey, I just wanted to welcome you to the show. How you doing, man? What's going on? How's life treating you as a best ball millionaire?
Doing great. Thanks for having me. Generally great. Unfortunately, I did get COVID, so I came down with COVID yesterday. So that's why quarantining at my girlfriend's place. This isn't my usual setup, but other than that, no complaints. Hoping to kick the illness pretty soon here and get back on my feet. And I'm excited for the NFL schedule release, which we should have in about 2 hours or so.
Yeah, and obviously that's important for our game, best ball, because of the bye weeks, and we'll talk about that a little bit. But dude, first and foremost, you are feeling okay, right?
I'm feeling great. Yeah, I mean, you could hear it a little bit in my voice, but other than that, I'm doing good.
Okay, I hope you got some hot tea and honey there in that Bills mug.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's great to be with you, man. So I just wanted to talk to you and just talk about your background. And the thing that was interesting to me is obviously your Twitter handle is at ChessLiam. You play chess. How long have you been playing chess? And how does that kind of color your best ball expertise here?
Been playing chess since I was in preschool. So grew up playing it. Was a New Hampshire Scholastic champion. Became a chess teacher in New York City. So I taught in New York City for 3 years. I built strong chess teams. Went on to work for chess.com and their kid website, Chess Kids. So I helped like schools get set up on the website. And then when I won, I quit because it didn't really make sense with the tax bracket to work for them this year. But I mean, obviously chess is a very strategic game. So is best ball. And as far as actually doing the drafts, a lot of the drafts are, you have 30 seconds if you do the fast clocks. And a lot of the chess I play is quick chess. So, you got 3 minutes max. So I'm used to making pretty quick decisions. So I'm very rarely like, oh, who do I take? And that will come naturally too after you've done hundreds of drafts.
Yeah, that's interesting to me that you brought that up. By the way, I also wanted to kind of plug for you, excuse me, the fact that you're gonna have like a channel here. It's not set up yet. I think COVID kind of threw a wrench into that. But follow you on Twitter at ChessLiam, and you're gonna have everything kind of laid out there once you get over the virus.
Yeah, I'm gonna break into the content streets. I think it's fun coming on shows like this, giving back to the community. I was gonna have it set up. I was procrastinating, but then I got COVID. So look forward to that in like a week or so. You'll see me on Twitter or wherever you get your media.
So when did you start playing best ball? What app did you use? Was it back in the MFL 10 days? What got you into best ball?
So no, I did not play in the old like draft MFL days because, to be honest with you, I even when the prize was like 10K to first, I didn't think the like the investment of time of like doing hundreds of these drafts was really like worth
I'll
it.
take the 10K, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, hey, like that's a great season, but I mean, when you're talking about doing 150 drafts, that's like, almost 150 hours. So it doesn't really quite work out like that. So I got seriously into best ball kind of randomly 2 years ago, and I started with just DraftKings. Like I had some extra income, and I think I was just like on the app one day. There was no marketing, like as DraftKings does, they just roll out products, and I just randomly discovered it. Fired quite a bit there. I didn't like max the milli maker, but I fired some high stakes. And that was kind of a wild year because there's like a lot of like high stakes fantasy professionals that were in those high stakes contests. And if you don't set a ranking on DraftKings, or if you don't manually select a player, aka if you just auto draft and enter, your contest is automatically dead. So there were like all these high stakes accounts and professional gamblers who were having these like dead accounts, or like Osimo was like auto drafting like Darius Geist, who was suspended that season. It was just like all this confusing things to me. I'm like, what's going on here? But it's kind of ironic where I think best ball is so great because the people who crush at DFS usually don't waste their time drafting in best ball. They just auto them all. So that's why they were doing all these wonky things. And so I started on DraftKings, had a successful season, made some money. And then last year is when I went kind of all in. I maxed Underdog BBMIII, and I maxed the DK one, and I fired some high stakes ones on FFBC and whatnot.
Yeah. So I do want to back up because you said you got in by playing DraftKings. Do you have a DFS background?
I mean, I've been playing for a long time. I'm not like a crusher by any means.
Yeah.
And, so yes, I've been playing since like, 10 years. And I've been playing also like poker. I've been playing since I was like 16.
So you talked a lot about the time investment into DFS, into a best ball draft, and something that needs to be worth it to you. What's your deal with season long fantasy with waiver wires and all that stuff?
I'm gonna have some like main event teams on the FFBC. I'll have like a couple, but I have a home league that I'm the commissioner of. I won 2 years ago. I got last place last year. I think I'll take that trade off.
Yeah.
But other than that, like I'm not firing too much high stakes because I like that the best ball, like I could not do 100 season long teams. Just absolutely no way. Like best balls is the future where you just draft, you're done. And we all know the draft is the best part anyways.
Yeah. And like, so the thing about best ball for me is like, I certainly haven't cleared 1 million, but I've had some success, nothing like you. But one of the things I love is like, you come in like week 12, sometimes you'll pick up your phone and be like, oh crap, this one's got a chance. Like that's a live one. I didn't even realize that. I'm sure you were following a little bit more closely. So now I want to get into the lineup that won you the BBM last year. And I think Ben's got a graphic prepared for it. I think he's going to bring that up, but we'll start by talking about the BBM2 lineup that won. First and foremost, do you remember when you drafted this team?
June 16th.
Okay. Do you remember the exact day? I believe you might well be aware of this. Now, I think that's Tupac Shakur's birthday.
I did not know that. Yeah, okay. I was told it was June 16th, but even like, do I remember, did I know it was June 16th? No, but I knew, when I see these drafts, I have like vague memories like, oh yeah, okay, I remember this one.
Okay, so this is the lineup, and now if you don't understand Underdog Fantasy, the Best Ball Mania, essentially the playoffs are essentially cut lines, and teams advance through, and then the team that has the high scoring week 17 ends up winning. So Josh Allen, Justin Fields, Jonathan Taylor, Aaron Jones. I'm not going to read off the whole roster. I think people understand. But when you look at this team, your Week 17 roster, was this kind of similar to a lot of the teams you drafted maybe not with the same players, but stylistically? 2 quarterbacks, 2 tight ends. You have only 5 wide running backs, so you have 9 wide receivers on this team. Was that a kind of a stylistic facsimile for a lot of the teams you drafted?
Yeah, I think for a lot of teams, if I got elite quarterback with Josh, I was always going 2 and occasionally 1 quarterback. If I double tap 2 tight ends in the mid rounds, I also usually lean towards going 2. I think 3 is fine, but I went 2 a lot. And then I just, like volume at wide receiver is what I do a lot. And then, this team obviously started with 2 running backs, because I went Jonathan Taylor, Aaron Jones.
Yeah.
And, I'm a proponent for drafting all over the season, but we talk about this barbell approach a lot now, where you draft a lot early, you draft a lot late. And for example, like Aaron Jones, I got in the, I think it was Jonathan Taylor I got in the 2nd round because some report came out about Carson Wentz or something. And so he dropped 10 picks or something. Yeah.
I posted a team. I remember posting a team where I drafted Jonathan Taylor. This was in August, by the way. And I think it was Frank Rowe. We're gonna get Naeem Hines involved and Marlon Mack's back, And so he slipped to I got him at 21 overall. Of course, my first pick was Ezekiel Elliott, and then I took Allen Robinson in the 3rd round, so that team was drawn dead right away. But no, I think it's always fun to look at when you drafted a team and what was the prevailing sentiment about some of these guys. By the way, just an observation: has anyone ever told you look like Josh Allen?
I get that kind of rarely. I actually do. I've heard. I got my first.
Hey, he's a handsome guy.
Of my life. Yeah. So I get Josh Allen. Who else do I get? I get Michael Sarah sometimes.
No, interesting. Yeah, I think there's more Josh Allen than Michael Sarah. Anyway, I think it's always really interesting to kind of analyze when you drafted guys based on what the prevailing sentiment is. You have Jamar Chase on this team, okay? We all know the bad preseason. So you actually, my guess here is you paid a premium for Jamar Chase vis-a-vis where he was going in August when he was dropping all the passes in the preseason. Obviously, he carried your team. You can make the argument he was your MVP. But you drafted a rookie wide receiver. Is that a case-by-case kind of basis for you? Is that something that you'll attack heavily when you're doing best ball? What was the thought process with Jamar Chase?
Well, I mean, I just, I'm someone who, consumes fantasy content from, people in the industry. And to me, it was just he's a generational talent. And so when I like a player, if I think the cost is good, I don't really have a problem going over the field on exposure. Some people will try to limit their exposures. Some people are more like me. They'll go heavy. I think I had about 19%, which 8% is a baseline, right? Because 8% is 1 in 12. So I was close to over 2x the field. And he's not alone for a player who actually was more expensive when I drafted, Rashad Penny.
Yeah.
He also dropped later in the season. And I don't know if you know this, but I was actually at my cousin's bachelor party for the Week 17 game.
I did not know that.
So I sweated this game with my best friends from home and my best friend, my cousin, and it was just wild. We were down in Key West. We were we watched a little bit at my house. We went to the bars. It was I still remember how this slate broke out, obviously.
Oh, yeah, that's going to be imprinted in your mind, I think, forever. I just I went to Vegas for my bachelor party, the most basic bitch thing you can possibly do. But hey, Vegas is awesome. It'd be I have to imagine what your buddy or your cousin, whoever's wedding it was, they're like, God damn it. I go to my bachelor party and my friend wins $1 million. If I was in Vegas and but one of my buddies cleared $100,000 playing poker, I'd be like, what the hell, man?
Yeah. No, and he's a jokester. So of course he's like, really, on my bachelor party, you're going to do this? But of course I bought them all drinks and whatnot.
Oh, for sure.
And so
that's like when you hit a hole in one on steroids, right? You have to buy the bar. You buy the clubhouse all drinks when you get a hole in one. Yeah, that I have to imagine what that's. I hope I feel that one day. Going back to the team, I found this really interesting because, I see Underdog tweeting today, what's your favorite, low owned or like late round stack? What are the best stacks? What are the underrated stacks for fantasy? And you posted this team. And I also saw a week or so ago, you posted a team where you called it one of your favorite BBM3 teams that you've drafted so far. And while they weren't devoid of stacks, there's not a ton on these teams that Josh Allen here, your only stack for Josh Allen was Cole Beasley. You don't even have one for Justin Fields on this team. So, when you go into a draft, are you more best player available? If I can stack, so be it. Or are you taking kind of a contrarian approach where you're saying everybody's focusing on stacks? Just give me good players. Just give me good players, and I'll take that to the bank.
So I'm definitely not avoiding stacks, but in a pure theoretical sense, right? Like if we talk about the most upside case you can have, which obviously you need upside to take down first in a milli maker, you don't want to generally overstack, right? Because if a quarterback goes off, really it's, Jamar Chase went off. Tyler Boyd and T. Higgins, they didn't explode. So you only needed him for the most upside case. Now, this team did have a lot of correlation, right, for week 17. And just in general, right? Like I have Jamar Chase and Tyler Boyd. So maybe what I was doing there is if I have two of the Bengals pass catchers, really no one else is incentivized to take Joe Burrow other than me. So maybe I'm trying to get him to drop around because for the statue quarterbacks, generally the quarterback is like the least important part of the stack, right? And you look at this example, Jamar Chase went for 50. Joe Burrow had a very big game too, but Josh Allen wasn't too far behind, right? It's not, he scored 2 on the ground. And with Justin Fields, I didn't stack him because he was a rookie rushing quarterback that I knew I was just hoping for, ground points with him pretty much. And someone probably took like Darnell Mooney or whatever. So I will stack, but this game has like a ton of week 17 correlation, right? Like Marquez Valdes-Scantling and Aaron Jones, that's positive correlation with the running back and the wide receiver. I have Amon-Ra St. Brown against Rashad Penny, a super low owned week 17 matchup that obviously was like key to me winning. The Christian Kirk versus Amari Cooper, everyone liked that Arizona Cowboys game to start. And so, yeah, it really depends who my quarterback is and what offense I'm targeting, right? Like, if it's the Bills, maybe I'll have 2 or 3 pass catchers. If it's the Chief, the same. If it's the Ravens, maybe I only want 1, right? Like, I don't see him supporting 2 in a game.
Andrews or Bateman, you take one of those 2, right?
Yeah.
So, you mentioned interesting the week 17 correlation. So I think for most people, when the schedule release comes out and you're looking for fantasy, you're like, the first thing you think of for best ball is bye weeks. Hey, I hope the teams I drafted don't have all 3 of my quarterbacks on the same bye or something like that. You are looking at matchups in these big tournament playoff weeks, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, so my first year I played, I looked at week 14, 15, 16, because I don't think they added the extra week then.
No, they didn't.
So I looked at all of the playoffs matchups. And I was like, okay, like I'm not going to take too much Dalvin Cook this year because I don't like I'm doing like crazy things. I'm like, I don't like the rushing D matchup he has for the playoffs, which was probably bad process because, I mean, he did have a huge season, but he did have a bad playoff. So it kind of was right. This last year, I looked at the whole playoff schedule, but I pretty strictly cared about week 17. Because for those who don't know, it's like you got to win 2 of 12. Then you got to be top. I'm not exactly sure what it is this year, like 1 out of, 16 and then 1 out of 18. And then this year it's 1 out of 460, right? And if you look at 10th place money versus first place money, it's a world of difference. Like 10th place money is like 1% of what first place pays. So you got to really build the highest upside you can, is why I recommend hyper focusing on those week 17 playoff matchups.
And just circling back to like your team builds now, my guess is your approach is, if I'm not first, I'm last. And you're not going to, like, for instance, you're not going to have a team that's like, oh, this is balanced and this is, you don't mind striking out 3 times if you hit a grand slam in a game, essentially, is what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, there's 2 theories of thought here, right? Like, one theory of thought is I want to advance as much teams as I can because that gives me as many ping pong balls come the playoffs and I have a better chance. I really built last year with like first place in mind. I was not thinking, how do I advance out of this league? It was, how do I make a amazingly upside team? And I mean, looking at this team, it's not like any player really was like a super smash alone. Like Josh Allen was obviously the quarterback 1 on the season. Jonathan Taylor was the running back 1. And Jamar Chase came down huge in week 17. And then Damian Harris did too. So it's about, obviously there's like, I'm not going to claim that I'm the best ball player of all time because I ran pure in week 17. But I was thoughtful about targeting week 17.
Yeah. And I mean, also, like, we obviously believe this is a game of skill. This industry wouldn't exist if we didn't think this was a game of skill, right? But you also, like you said, you ran pure. I'm looking at this roster, man. You also got some really good fortune with injuries, and I guess that's probably part of it too. I mean, you ran pure, but you also managed to have a pretty healthy team for the playoff weeks, which certainly helps. But that comes into drafting as many teams as you do.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, when you have 150, you hope one will be healthy, and I mean, last year was pretty unique where, week 15 was pretty normal, and then week 16, like half the league had COVID. So talking about my set of 150, I qualified, I think, maybe like 24 out of 150. So that's like, I think 25 out of 150 is expected. So I was actually a little bit below on that. But I had 60% Gabriel Davis last year, which is absurd, right? Like that 8% is normal. So I was way over the field on him. And he happened to explode in week 15, the first week of the playoffs. So of my 24 or whatever made the playoffs, I had 6 make the semifinals. So, which is huge mathematically, right?
Right.
And then of those 6, all of them were like decimated by COVID and whatnot, other than this one. And I looked at the one. The final was 160 people last year. You'd be surprised. There were several people who had even 3 teams in the finals. It was kind of crazy.
Yeah. I think it's funny that you mentioned that because there was a point here in week 14 in which the NFFC primetime, their main event, Graham Barfield, myself, and Tom Brawley, we had a team that was in the literal first place of that contest. And we even set it up perfect. We had Lamar Jackson as our quarterback, and we handcuffed him with Tyler Huntley. Well, you know what happened there. And then we get into the playoffs. We don't even have a quarterback on the roster. But which is interesting to me because I'm looking at this team, Josh Allen and Justin Fields. I mean, you essentially got nothing out of Justin Fields. And
yeah, it was really a 1 quarterback team.
Yeah, but you've also said you will occasionally draft a 1 quarterback team. I will fully admit I have never done that in playing best ball. I've never drafted only 1 quarterback or only 1 tight end or whatever. What's your rationale behind that? How can it work? Has it worked for you?
Yeah, I mean, you need your quarterback to be healthy, obviously, but if you hit on a Josh Allen, you really don't need anyone else at the position almost ever. He's just very unique where he's going to give you tons of points on the grounds, even in like bad weather matchups. So, I mean, the thesis is this year you're trying to beat 500,000 people. So it's okay to get a little weird out there. I also had a team make the puppy finals, which is one of their $5 contests, $50K to first. It was 4 quarterback teams with Christian McCaffrey. So obviously Christian McCaffrey didn't contribute at all.
Of
Had
course.
4 quarterbacks. And that team was actually in first after the morning games and ended up finishing like 6th place. So, any structure can win at the end of the day.
Yeah. So given the fact that you've had teams with 1 quarterback, 4 quarterbacks, another thing I've never done, by the way, and maybe I should start absorbing some of this stuff. We had a question here from one of the listeners, and it was from Quentin, who's one of our boys here. And do you ever go into best ball drafts with specific strategies, or do you just lean towards best available with your rankings? This seems to indicate you are really flexible.
I'm super flexible, and like I don't even make rankings. Like I have an idea when I see the players of like, oh, I want this person, and I have heavy exposures, but I just kind of let the draft fall. And I mean, very rarely I'll be like, okay, I want to start like 2 running back here, or if I get like the 12 hole, I'm going to do that this time because I've been doing a lot of double wide receiver. But really, it's like a holistic process. Let's just draft it, see what happens, because you'll see some weird things. Like, you get a Steelers fan in your draft and they're taking Ben Roethlisberger number 1 overall. You got to adjust,
I mean, I have done those drafts where like somebody does something crazy and I'm like, oh, all of a sudden, oh, this is an 11-man league. Thank you. Like, I love when that happens. And sometimes you take advantage of that. Now, just the way my brain works with fantasy, I enter a best ball draft and let's just say I get the 5th pick. Okay. I have an idea of what my team will probably look like when I draft that. Are you saying that like I shouldn't think that way? Are
you saying you're like, okay, I'm gonna go through 5 running backs?
No, certainly not. First and foremost, being on Sirius XM, and in August when I get all the questions, hey, I have the 7th pick. I'm thinking, I'm gonna take Justin Jefferson, and then I think, do you guys think running back, quarterback? And I'm like, dude, like I don't know, man. Somebody might do something freaking nuts in your league. I have an idea of what like a build might look like. Are you saying I should just wipe my brain clean until I see my pick and then build as the draft goes on?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like this year, like let's take last year. I didn't take almost any Derrick Henry and Alvin Kamara or Zeke. And so I faded those 3 guys in the first round, which allowed me to have higher exposures elsewhere. Obviously, I got lucky with Derrick Henry. Like he had a great season, got hurt. The other 2 was kind of good process that worked out. This year, I find myself doing something similar. Like if I faded Derrick Henry this year, like I'm going to find it hard to believe I'm going to be way overweight this year. But no, I'm not being like, okay, I'm going to go wide receiver. But you might have some guy. Oh yeah, this is my puppy team.
Yeah, this is the puppy team here. Yeah.
You might have some guy who goes 3 quarterback or even like 5 quarterback and is trying to like lock out the room. And then you should be like, oh, okay, this guy's going to have 5 of the elite quarterbacks. I have the other one. Everyone else is going to be fighting for, like Mac Jones and Zach Wilson, so I think looking at the room is definitely an edge, which I love how Underdog has, how they show like the board.
I love that. Yeah.
But I'm a big visual learner. So seeing it like that really works for me. Whereas like DraftKings is just like a long line. And yeah, looking at this puppy team, I mean, the running backs I wasn't getting that much points, but obviously I like hit it out of the park with wide receiver. My tight ends were really strong. And I had 4 quarterbacks is the best I can say about that.
So this team's really interesting. You had 4 quarterbacks because you knew you were slumming it at quarterback. You knew that based on the build because you went double elite tight end here, which is also a viable strategy for you.
Yeah, I like, a lot of people don't invest in the tight end position, but I mean, think of like it's like 1/8 of your starting lineup, right? That you have to play every week. So yeah. I generally try to target tight ends, and I think it's good to think through half-point PPR versus full-point PPR and what positions are more valuable on different scoring. So, like, for example, quarterback is more important in half-point PPR because obviously the wide receivers get less points for their catches.
Yeah. And so, by the way, just in case you're new to best ball, Underdog's half PPR. DraftKings is full. Best Ball 10s is full. So
Drafters is full.
yeah. So just important to know all that. Oh, by the way, and speaking of, you're talking to somebody who Mark Andrews was like probably by far my MVP in fantasy, just across the board. And I've really found myself gravitating towards like Kyle Pitts this year. I don't know. It's just something that like in my brain has clicked. Like that elite tight end is just something that it is so hard to get. And I like how you mentioned the one thing I really like about Underdog. If you look at the top of a draft on Underdog, it has a player's positional breakdown. And when I'm targeting maybe two different positions, I might be like, ooh, I'm at like pick 10 in this round, and the two guys after me already have a quarterback. Well, there's a quarterback I'm liking, but there's also a running back I'm eyeing. I think I'm going to take the running back because I feel like the quarterback has a better shot at getting back to me. And that Underdog allows you to do that, which I think certainly helps, like you said, being a visual learner.
Yeah, you can easily see like, okay, this guy has like 2 elite quarterbacks. He's not going to take one. Or, and yeah, it's like talking about my player exposures. It's kind of funny because I was like underweight on a lot of the league winners. So I'm talking about Leonard Fournette. I was a Ronald Jones guy.
Oh no,
was wrong, right?
Not all of us can be perfect, man. I mean,
yeah, I was talking about Cooper Kupp. Like I was below 8% on him.
Mm-hmm.
Mark Andrews, I was above field, but I had way more Kyle Pitts, way more Darren Waller, way more even TJ Hawkinson than him. So like I was wrong and missed on a lot of these elite league winners. But that's what's so great about these playoff contests is it doesn't really matter what happens in the regular season.
Yeah. And
you can almost argue you don't want to have those league winners on your team come the playoffs.
Because everybody does.
Because everybody, right? Because like take Mark Andrews. Mark Andrews and Cooper Kupp were north of 50% in the finals. So that gave me a huge advantage come the finals where I had a 3% owned Noah Fant.
Yeah, and he had he scored almost 20 points, I think.
He scored a garbage time touchdown from Drew Lock, my guy there, and that sealed the deal.
Yeah, you were, I mean, I don't know if I could say you were overweight, but I hope you gave Jamar Chase a shout out, by the way.
All right, yeah, 19% Jamar Chase. Obviously he crushed for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so I'm now I just kind of want to transition into this year. What are you seeing? What are some of the strategies you've been employing? I'm not going to tell you to give away your entire portfolio, but we certainly need some nuggets here. What are you seeing here? Have you found like rooms are sharper earlier? Just what are some of the strategies you've been employing here?
Yeah, I think it's like interesting the discussion of sharp versus casual, right? Because the draft room I recognize that I won with. I recognize some of those names from a high stakes fantasy. That was a very sharp draft room, right? So you don't need to win by drafting with a bunch of people taking Tom Brady 101 overall, right?
Yeah.
Being with the sharp people sometimes almost helps because they know, hey, if I don't have Jamar Chase or T. Higgins, I shouldn't just take Joe Burrow.
Yeah.
Which someone else might just be like, I like Joe Burrow.
I've said this before, and it's 1,000,000% true. When I do like a draft with like an expert draft or like an industry draft, I am so much more comfortable in that room than I am in like the $5 league that my neighborhood threw together. Like I am so much more comfortable in a room where I feel like I can predict what because if you respect people, you're like, all right, that guy's smart. Like he's going to do something that makes sense. Ergo, the thing I want to do that makes sense is more likely to happen. But like when I'm in a league, I live in Greenville, South Carolina. Okay. We're 30 minutes outside of Clemson. Clemson football is huge here. I'm in a league where Hunter Renfrow went in the first round. Okay.
Yeah. So
like, that throws me off. Like somebody takes a quarterback with their first 2 picks. I don't know what to do with that. So like, I kind of agree with you though. Like if I can assume somebody else is going to act logically, that almost makes things a little easier for me.
Well, yeah. And I don't want to be rude to people, but there's this debate in fantasy, like, oh, we should wait till August where all these like phone shitter drafters, these casual people are just going to like come on and they don't know anything. And that's going to help me. But I don't think if you know anything about poker, like there's recreational players, which I am at poker, right? Like I'm not a crusher at poker. I'm probably donating over the long run, right? Like you should not be afraid of me as a poker professional. And I view that the same with best ball, where just because someone does a lot of drafts early, they could just be a degenerate, right? Like, and they're getting their guys like, and just because they're plugged in, it doesn't mean they're like this sharp person to be afraid of. And so I like drafting early. And that team I shared on Twitter that you pointed out, the reason why I like that team is because the players I got then, you can't get now at cost. So like I like teams that are unique. Obviously, you need to be unique in this contest. And one way to do that is to get the players that are going to rise over time.
Yeah. And I mean, sometimes even you'll get players who fall over time for one reason or the other. And, you know, that player will end up falling and maybe guys avoid him. And then you end up just having him maybe in a decent spot. Like you mentioned Jonathan Taylor, for instance. Well, you took Jonathan Taylor in the first round. Well, by August, he was consistently a second round pick. You ended up just having a good player because the narratives about him were just totally bullshit. They were totally bunk. So, anyway, what are you noticing so far in some of these early drafts? Maybe strategy wise, anything that's kind of caught your eye, surprised you about some of the underdog rooms that you've been in so far?
I think each year is extremely unique in fantasy football. And I think that sometimes research that focuses on what worked in the past misses that point. And I'm talking particularly about snake drafts like this, right? Like where this year, you know, there's not as many running backs in that dead zone as there are typically. Or if they are, they're like kind of good players. And then the other thing is, sorry, I got COVID brain a little bit.
Understood.
Well, I've done about like 30 drafts, and I'm really waiting for the schedule release tonight to fire heavy. But some players I'm like underweight on. I don't think I've clicked their button once so far. Is Derrick Henry, Ben against the big dog. He does it every year. I will have some, especially on Underdog, because if you draft on two websites, get a guy that better at half point PPR. That is kind of why I was underweight on Cooper Kupp, so that was a miss. I'll give you a guy I like, Russell Gage, because I like Russell Gage because if what we saw with Antonio Brown last year with Brady is what we're getting, this guy's going to smash. So as long as they don't sign like Julio or Will Fuller or someone, which is possible, like there's some talent out there on the I've just been like, okay, Brady, like from what I know too, like he personally called him. He wants him, and I'm a Bills fan, so I'm not someone that like generally like I faded the Bucks kind of last year just out of principle. It kind of worked out, but with their fluky Saints game. But this year I'm loosening up. So I've got a lot of Russell Gage, especially because we don't know what's happening with Chris Godwin. We don't know, he could have a huge season.
So I threw this out there. This is awesome that you mentioned this, because a couple of months ago, so I'm talking pre-AJ Brown trade, I threw just a little Twitter poll, and I don't post a lot of Twitter polls, but I threw this out there, and it was essentially a 50-50 vote. And I said, who would you rather have, Robert Woods in Tennessee or Russell Gage in Tampa? Now, I was taking Russell Gage. I don't want to say 10 out of 10, but if I had that choice in 10 drafts, I'm probably going 8 or 9 to Russell Gage.
I have no Robert Woods. I'll look up my exposure right now. I'll tell you.
This was pre-AJ Brown, and I'm like, look, Russell Gage, I'd rather have Brady's wide receiver 3 than Ryan Tannehill's wide receiver 2, and it's not even a question. And I feel like people feel like Gage is kind of boring. Oh, he's a wide receiver 3. Now, I mean, those are the guys I feel like I'm super comfortable being overweight on those guys. Like those middle round guys. Like, I don't care. Like, if Russell Gage is on 100% of my best ball teams, I probably won't give a shit, because it's going to be a 9th or 10th round pick. And I feel like the upside of that is so much more than the downside for that.
He's going around like pick 100. He was like pick 120, I think, earlier. I have 25% right now. But I mean, the upside, like, obviously, I don't know. There's this like Brady Miami rumor mil. I don't know. I don't think that's true. And Mike Evans is old, right? Like he could fall off literally any time. And that type of wide receiver generally does fall off as they get older.
This is Evans' 9th year in the league. I was at the
draft. I mean, like the dude's a beast. Like if he's healthy, he's a lock for 10 to 14 touchdowns. Which obviously on like half-point PPR, you want to target people who are going to score touchdowns, but Russell Gage has a pretty wide, outcome, and I think it could be huge.
Yeah. Let's just talk just really quick before we let you go. Quarterback strategy in general, like you said, you're just going to be flexible. Like, I've coached myself into being on best ball a little bit more aggressive at the quarterback position than I like to be in redraft. But it doesn't necessarily have to be that way. But with you, I saw your teams that you drafted here that were the big winners. You had an elite quarterback on one team and were kind of zero tight end on the other, for lack of a better term. The other, you went double elite tight end and you had 4 just complete scrub quarterbacks. Zach Wilson was actually your highest scorer in the final week. Is it one or the other for you? Like it's either early quarterback or early tight end, maybe both. Like are you ever gonna go mid-round on both of those?
Yeah, I will. I mean, and it really depends the caliber of the player, right? Like for me, like maybe Matt Stafford is like the cutoff of the elite where I'll go 2 quarterback. I go 2 quarterback a lot on Underdog because you only get 18 rounds, right? So you don't get 20 like on other websites. But last year was just kind of unique where you had guaranteed starting quarterbacks going in the 18th round. So that 4 quarterback team, those quarterbacks were my last 4 picks, and anytime you can do that, I think it's totally viable as long as you're strong at running back, wide receiver, tight end.
In Underdog Fantasy, just one more, like we hear all this talk about zero RB, whatnot. I like just aesthetically, I like hero RB where I have 1 and then I'm trying to find like a bunch of the middle round guys. What are the middle to late round running backs where you're holding your nose to draft them because that's why they're middle to late round running backs? What kind of profile are you looking for in those guys when you're looking to fill out like your 4th and 5th running backs on a roster?
Yeah, I mean, in general, I think you should be targeting handcuffs of running backs you don't already have, because like taking Alexander Madison, if Dalvin Cook goes down, we've seen he has 30-point upside. But I will take even some pass catching guys, but I don't think you should be overweight on them. So like someone like a Dameon Pierce, I believe, for the Texans.
Yeah,
I've been having quite a bit of him. He can, he could be the starter in Houston.
There.
And in general, like I don't care about for bad teams I think are going to be bad. I'll take running backs for them because bad teams, bad coaches, usually they're trying to run the ball anyways. Maybe they don't score a ton of points, but like a DeAndre Swift, like that was a bad team last year. He was a great fantasy player.
Yeah. So like you're talking like like Nyheim Hines, Kenny Gainwell, guys like that who are consistently going in the double-digit rounds. Those guys do have their place even on Underdog.
Yeah, I've been taking those guys. Nyheim Hines is like I think Carson Wentz is just like
you hurt him.
Yes, absolutely. And so like I'm kind of out on McKissick, and I kind of like Hines because we've seen it before, and I think just like I mean, Gainwell I've been taking, but it's totally possible that he also just doesn't see the field this year.
Yeah, it's who knows, because they didn't do anything at running back. The Eagles are weird. Miles Sanders is a guy that this is one point where I've had, because I'm talking Miles Sanders here. Everybody hates him. Okay.
I like him.
Yeah. Everybody. So like, I'm looking at like, okay, I understand it, but he's now an 8th round pick behind what might be by degrees of separation the best offensive line in professional football.
Yeah.
So
and
I'm starting to look at positives there. Yeah.
Yeah. And if my first running back, if I go like, 4 wide receivers, elite tight end, if my first running back is Miles Sanders, I'm feeling pretty good about that. He scored no touchdowns last year. The offense is going to be better. Like it is. I'm big on Hurts and the Eagles. I like them a lot.
Yeah. So, Liam, we're going to wrap this up right now because you've given us so much of your time, and I don't want you to overexert yourself given your condition. But right now, I mean, just if you want to plug something, follow you at Chess Liam. I presume you're just going to be tweeting best ball content out the freaking ass for the next 4 months. So
yeah,
I think we're all excited.
Yeah, so follow me on Twitter. I'll have my channel up and running soon. I also am going to be breaking into the chess content street. So if that's something people want to check out, I'm going to try to do both. You know, and just reach out. I like engaging and answering questions. And thanks so much for having me on, guys.
Yeah, dude. I know chess had its moment with the Anya Taylor-Joy series, which was actually very good. I mean, I thought it was. Did you like that as a chess player?
It was really well done. I binge watched it in like one night, and it exploded chess actually.
So I really should get into chess. I don't know if I have the patience. That you want to talk about something that would make me feel like an idiot even more than I already do. It would be chess. But Liam Murphy, everybody. Liam, thanks so much for joining us. As a matter of fact, we're going to be with our partnership with Underdog Fantasy. We're going to be streaming drafts throughout the summer, probably one a week, if not more. We'd love to have you back at some point, whether it's with me, Tom Brawley, Graham Barfield, Scott Barrett, John Hansen. We'd love to have you on. Maybe even if you're not drafting, maybe you can be analyzing. It would be great.
Yeah, I'd love to come on for a draft. That sounds like a blast.
All right, Liam Murphy, everybody, at Chess Liam on Twitter. Make sure you go to Underdog Fantasy. Use the code FANTASYPTS. Yeah, I mean, look, that's the only validation you need, man. Look at that. You just wear that thing everywhere. I got to get me a nice shirt, too. I got a Flex League shirt. Yeah. I'm a champion of one of these. I don't get the $1 million, but I do get a championship belt back there.
Oh, okay,
Liam Murphy, everybody. My name's Joe Dolan. Ben Kukanis behind the glass. We'll be back next week. We're going to be streaming Underdog Fantasy Drafts, and we're going to be doing it throughout the summer. Great talking to you, Liam. Good seeing you, everybody.
Bye, guys.